Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Fury versus Ngannou fight. If you are new around here though and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do need like the video, and let's get straight into it. Seeing a few channels not doing predictions for this, completely understandable. It's not exactly everybody's cup of tea, this fight. I mean, it's not overly mine. I'd much prefer Fury Usyk, but it's what we've got and that's what I'm here to do a prediction for. So going into this fight, Fury is 33-0 and 1 with 24 KOs. And Ngannou is 17-3 with 12 KOs and 4 submissions in MMA, and this is now his professional, well, not even professional, this is now his boxing debut. This fight is for the WBC Rehab Season belt. Thought I'd mention it, doesn't really mean anything, the belt, because it's the first time it's been fought for, but nonetheless it's a nice looking belt, I suppose. WBC yet again adding a belt for not really any reason. Fury's last fight was a win via TKO in round 10 versus Chisora, and Ngannou's last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Garn back in January of 2022. Fury is the WBC World Heavyweight Champion and Ngannou is the former UFC Heavyweight Champion. Fury is 6'9" and Ngannou is 6'4". Speak a bit more about what I've just been saying. Last time out for Fury, a very comfortable performance against Chisora, like everybody knew it would be. It was a fight which, like this one, didn't really need to happen. It was even more of an irrelevant fight than this one, and we already knew what the score would be. I feel like Fury just played with him a little bit and just let it get on to the later rounds because he wanted to get more money and make more of an entertainment for the opponents, for the fans, I mean. But either way, he still managed to win easily and coast through it. Ngannou's last performance, it was a good performance. Like I said, it was a little while ago now. Very heavy, dominant fight, which going into this isn't really going to show us much. But he managed to adapt, make adjustments, come in with a good game plan in a fight which necessarily wasn't. It was a tough fight for him. It was against an opponent who was bigger than him and had good striking, similar to Fury, but he managed to adapt and kind of come away still with a victory, which was still a dominant victory, but like I said, a lot of grappling and takedowns, which of course in boxing you can't be doing, and the fact that he has been out for well over a year now, I believe. Like I said, I think it was January 2022. He's just had struggles with getting released from the UFC, and then after that making a fight. Do I believe that him leaving the UFC is a good thing? That's a different topic, really. Not going to give my thoughts on it too much at the moment, but either way, he's done that, and to be fair, he's now got this fight, which is for him a huge opportunity, a huge money fight, and like I said, for him, it's not really a bad thing. Like, I suppose now, if you look at it, the kind of landscape of the heavyweight division with the UFC, it's not at the best of points at the moment. Like, if he'd have stayed around in the UFC and possibly fought Aspinall, Pavlovich, like I think Garn would have still fought Jones either way. Jones, now he's out for 8 months, so either way Ngannou would have been just sat around doing nothing, or fighting contenders, and instead he's fighting this fight, which is a lot of money, like I mentioned, and so fair play to him. Credit to him for taking the fight. You can't discredit him for putting up the fight and saying and being willing to do it, and so yeah, fair play to him. Of course, Fury, the much bigger guy coming into this, so I believe Fury's pretty much used to that by now. A lot of the fights he's fought have been against smaller guys, but he's also used to fighting bigger guys as well. So he's kind of used to everything at this point. Ngannou, I'd say he's more comfortable striking against fighters who are of a similar height. But like I mentioned, he's fought against fighters who are bigger. But like I also mentioned, he preferred to take them to the ground. But also on this card is Wardley versus Adelaide for the British heavyweight title. A bit more of for the classic boxing fans, this fight, it's a fight which actually means something for boxing, which I think Wardley will win via TKO in round 5. Neither of these boxers are overly boxers, I suppose. They're not really overly technical, and I think they're going to come in for a war, a tear up, a good scrap, and I think Wardley's got that more grit, that more determination, that more aggressiveness, and I think he's going to be able to pull through and be able to get the stoppage relatively early on. But it would be interesting to see how both their gas tanks kind of run on going into the later rounds, because like I mentioned, I feel like it is going to be quite an explosive fight, this one. But going back to the main event, so Fury as a fighter, Can't really look too much into them as fighters for this. So I'm going to do what I always do for predictions in the way of saying positives and negatives, but you can't really look too much into it because you can't, especially for Ngannou, you can't really look too much into his boxing ability because we haven't really seen much of it yet. Fury, he's got great head movement. He's got his own power, of course, very good power as well. He rolls with the punches very well, works off the jab with everything. He's composed, he has heart, he's got high boxing IQ, he's got fast hands, he will pick you off with his shots, he can outbox you with ease, can fight at a mid or a close range, he's accurate, he's got good straight shots, aggressive, great kind of 1-2 shots, he improves throughout fights, he catches you coming in, he finds the gaps, he's got controlled and uses controlled pressure. He can be a front or a back foot fighter. He's sharp and he changes stance as well, which that last thing could be something which could be quite important for this fight. I feel like with Ngannou, he's going to come in reckless, he's going to come in wild, he's going to come in trying to land a big shot early on, and if Fury can just kind of figure out which shot that Ngannou's going to be throwing the big ones from, or if he's just going to be just continuously going with the overhand right or the overhand left, then he could switch stance to whichever one's necessary and start moving away from that shot, which can definitely not take away all the power, of course, but just take away bits of power, and it means that he can then set up counters as well from it, which he's very good at doing. Like I mentioned, there so many good attributes from Fury. He's an amazingly skilled boxer. He's a world champion. He's gotten to this point and he's unbeaten as well, and so you can't really take away anything from it. Like I said, you can't really look too much into it. Negatives of him, I'd say his movement is declining a bit. His actual lateral movement in a fight is declining a bit. He's not doing it as much anymore. I just don't know if that's age or if, like I said, I feel like it is declining a bit. He's been hurt in fights now. Obviously, he's shown that heart, that determination, that grit to be able to get up from it, but he has been hurt, and I don't know. You never know if that's played a toll on him, and you probably like to think that he's not been hit with as hard of a punch since getting hurt versus Wilder in his past 2 fights against White and Chisora. So, has that played a toll? We haven't really been yet to see that, and so Ngannou might be able to catch him, and if he does, like I said, has that played a toll? He's struggled against more unorthodox fighters, I'd say. Fury has, going back to the Otto Wallin fight. Everybody loved to speak about that fight because it was the one which Fury arguably struggled with quite a lot, when it was an opponent which was quite an unknown opponent and one which people didn't really expect him to struggle with. But like I said, he struggles against unorthodox opponents, but I feel like most fighters can, because it's very difficult to train for an unorthodox opponent because of course they're unorthodox, you don't really know what to expect from them. He's not overly a fast starter, so if Ngannou's going to be coming in quickly, then he's probably just going to cover up, take a few shots, and then try work with it from that. He's kind of set his own game plan. He says he wants to come in with a high guard, tuck his chin in, and just try and weather a bit of a storm, which not necessarily could be the best idea. He can coast through rounds. Like I said, to make a fight more entertaining for the fans, he can coast through rounds to just make it prolonged and go into the later rounds when he doesn't necessarily have to. So Ngannou, with that one shot kind of KO power, if he's going to be coasting through, he could get caught out because he's not as switched on as maybe he should be. He may stand and trade as well. That's another thing about him. With his entertaining type mindset, he's just going to want to stand and trade because he wants to give the fans the money's worth, which I respect, but for a boxing winning mindset, isn't really necessarily something you should be doing. He does get pushed back quite a lot, especially early on, like I said, and so Ngannou could definitely punish him with that. He stands a bit more upright and sometimes does leave his chin out a little bit, so if there's shots there could definitely be an overhand there. And he might also be overlooking Ngannou here as well. He's got a fight signed with Usyk already, so he definitely could be overlooking this fight, and it's like, you don't want to overlook anybody really. But Ngannou, as a fighter, like I said, you can't really say too much. He's going to come in with that aggressiveness. I'm sure he's going to come in quite recklessly, but going to be coming in, putting that pressure on, that imposing his physical size. Of course, he's going to have that explosive power coming in as well. He will punch through any guard, and I'm sure about that. He can find angles quite well. He can land a shot when somebody's coming in quite well, and from unorthodox angles. Some of his strikes have been against, and knockouts have been against opponents where they've been coming in quite recklessly, possibly going for a takedown or something like that, and then their head's in any kind of position, but then Ngannou kind of times him coming in and then being able to drop them from there. Or when they're breaking away from like a clinch, then he times them from there when their head could be in any kind of position. And that's impressive. He can also fight off the front or the back foot as well. He can counter, he can come on and be the aggressor as well, but I don't really want to see him counter in this fight. He shouldn't try box him. That's what everybody's been saying, and it's the truth. He shouldn't try box him. That's the last thing that he should be doing. He will walk you down. Of course, he's spiteful, and he's going to want to control the centre as well. So if Fury's going to turn it up, then it's going to still take a lot to be able to push Ngannou back, I believe. Negatives, he lacks speed, he's wild, he's reckless, not technical, doesn't really have much of a boxing kind of fundamental yet. I've seen him on the pads, it's not necessarily there, and he's admitted that himself. He said he's still learning, and that's why necessarily this fight shouldn't really be happening. But that's something which he definitely doesn't have, and that means he shouldn't really be boxing in this fight. Like I mentioned, he should be the more aggressive fighter. He can also keep his chin very widely open, and so if Fury catches him, if he times him coming in, then that could definitely open up for a stoppage or a knockdown. And I suppose also with the fact that he's coming from UFC, you can get knocked down in UFC and still win, and in MMA in general, and it's different. You can't be doing that. He's not got the jab. He doesn't really use the jab, so we haven't really seen if he's going to be able to set up any of his shots from that. He can't, of course, rely on wrestling. He can't just go to that as a backup if needed. He's not really going to have a backup, and so it'll be interesting to see where, if he does have to go into the kind of later rounds, where he relies on. And also we don't know how good his gas tank is, because he's never fought 10 rounds before in a professional fight, and so obviously it's 5-minute rounds in the UFC, which are very difficult as well, instead of 10 threes, which this is, but it's still longer. It's still gonna be more draining, I'd say. Well, especially when you're doing it against somebody at such a high level, and it's something which you're not really too experienced at what you're doing. And he's not really got much of a defensively. Like, there's not really much there. Fury is the clear favourite for this fight, and I think that Fury will win via KO in round 7. I think Fury's just gonna probably weather a storm a bit to start off with. And Ngannou wouldn't surprise me if he possibly even hurts Fury. He wouldn't surprise me if he possibly even, I'd say drop, maybe not, but hurts him just with like one of his shots earlier on, because he will probably come in quite recklessly, and I doubt Fury's going to want to stop the fight early, because like I mentioned, he's that entertaining type fighter. He doesn't really want to do that, but I believe that Fury will be able to weather any kind of storm. Then I think Ngannou will tire out, struggle to know what to do, just look like out of his depth completely, and Fury will be able to pick his shots out, do pretty much whatever he wants, and then just be able to possibly time him coming in, or just eventually be able to push him back because of his gas tank and his work rate progressively slowing down, and then be able to get a stoppage in round 7. Then there's only one fight which I want to see next, the same as what everybody wants to see, Usyk. It's been signed, it has to be next, in my opinion. It has to be. Shouldn't have been, this should have been now. It should have been Fury Usyk now, but it has to be next. And so I'm not putting any other opponents of who should fight next after that, other than him. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like it if you didn't, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.